All right, so on the draw against Rug Delver, obviously, or maybe not so obviously, I didn't know who I was playing against in terms of what deck they were on. This is the first time playing against them. We are on the draw, however. I do like this hand, despite the fact it only has one land. We do have a Ponder to look for more land. We do also have a Brainstorm as an extra backup. Swords for creatures, Spell Snare for stupid stuff on 2, Snapcaster later game, and Jace is, well, Jace is Jace. So we kept this. And the old classic first turn Delver. You got it. Nothing we can do about it. Yet, that is. Until we play Polluted Delta, we crack it, we get an island, we play a Ponder. Because you don't want to play Brainstorm here. That is, getting Brainstorm locked would probably end the game. We need a Ponder, so in case we find crap, we can shuffle it away. And we found something quite interesting. So, as we evaluate Ponder, in my recommendation when you're playing this deck, if you're first getting started, or even if you've been playing for a little while, take a little bit longer in your Ponders. I'm not talking about taking like 90 days, but literally this card in Brainstorm can decide whether you win or lose so many games, so it's very crucial. If you've ever found the game where it was really close and you're like, oh, I know I could have won that, usually the difference can just be like switching what card is on top of the other when it comes to Ponder or Brainstorm, so keep that in mind. Either way here, I do want more land. I don't want to shuffle this because Swords is awesome, obviously, against Delver. Even though this has to get a Tundra in the face of Wasteland, I am okay with that. And even though True-Name is great against Delver, even if I kept it like this, I'd eventually have to shuffle, and I wouldn't even be able to play turn 3, so without keeping all of these. So what I decided to do here is True-Name's on the bottom. Then I did Swords, and then I did Delta. I wasn't sure if this was like Grixis Delver or some other type of, Delver where they might have played discard, so that's the reason why I put Swords on top. It's not like it's going anywhere, just in case, you never know what decks play nowadays, so if they had some type of discard, they could take this one, and I would say, surprise, I got another one right here. You know how it is. Okay, so that's great. So now pretty much I'm going to have to kamikaze my Polluted Delta into the actual Wasteland, which is fine. That was my game plan. Sure, let's play Polluted Delta. Let's crack that. Let's get Tundra. In here, it's a very interesting spot in terms of who you want to Swords, as once again, this can make a very big deal. Delver still hasn't flipped. They haven't shown to have any type of cantrips, which means this isn't going to be as powerful, but despite the fact this hasn't flipped. Both of them have the capability of just doing a lot of damage. It makes it better that I have 2 swords, but either way, I actually chose to get rid of this first. All it takes is 1 cantrip for them to throw it in the bin and just start getting crazy card advantage from. Plus, that would set up this at the same time. I do have another sword, so I feel like this could be more threatening right away. So I went with the Dreadhorde. Okay. Still no flip, which is good for Stonebladers. You got it. And that's the problem with, what's the word? Being on the draw. Is that things like this are going to happen. Here, what I could have actually done, I didn't know they were going to play a 2-drop, but I guess I could have waited, not plowed, but then I could... There's the possibility that I might have to play a Swords into Counter Magic, with Spell Pierce. So that was the reason why I did that before. So I'm completely fine with this. I'm Spell Snaring this 100 out of 100 times for the most part. But they did happen to have the days. Like I said, that comes along with being under draw. So I'm fine with that. All right, so now we're in an interesting spot. This is the spot where I hate brainstorming, but you kind of have to. You need land, and you're facing down these 2 creatures, which can only get bigger and badder. So here, I am brainstorming, despite the fact I don't like doing it. Nice, we found the land. So here, Jace is definitely going on top, and then one more on top of that. It's going to be either a Stoneforge or a Brainstorm. I know Stoneforges are great, but given the nature of my hand, if I... put a Stoneforge back, that means it gives me 2 opportunities to find more cards, which I like, because I need to develop my land aside from, the swords that I have. This will also, developing my land, will also open up Snapcaster, so once I get to 4, I can play it around days. Not Spell Pierce, but, at least it's better. So I believe here I put back 1 Stoneforge. Yes. Let's crack this. Here we are certainly playing into days, that's not a big deal. I don't think they're interested in countering that anyway, so there's nothing we want here. If we get an island, we have island, and then we're pretty much going to die from not drawing a plains. And we get Jace boomeranging right back to us. That's a weird word, boomeranging right back to us. And Delver still has not flipped, so that's 3 cheers for the Stonebladers again. Yep, hip hip hooray. Must be frustrating, huh? Delver not flipping. And still, alright, so let's assess their hand at this point. If they had some type of cantrip, you know they would have fired it, because 1, they're getting a creature from this, 2, it's going to be setting up this, unless they just drew a Brainstorm and say maybe they want to set up their hand for next turn. Aside from that, they either have land, Wasteland, or like Force of Will, Spell Pierce, or Daze. But if they had Daze, I'm pretty sure they would have done it next turn just to Daze my Ponder and get a creature to increase their clock. So keep that in mind. It's always good to kind of assess what your opponent has. That'll help you make better decisions. Okay, so once again, we have Gabdi Yachts. So, unfortunately, what we're going to have to do here is Brainstorm. We have absolutely nothing going on. There's no need to just play a Snapcaster. I mean, what, possibly in today's, like, we know they probably don't have that, but that's not a whole lot of value right now. I could block one of these. I could stop the board, but I don't like that. I'm going with Brainstorm. At least if I get Brainstorm locked next turn, I can do that Snapcaster Mage, and that's great. We're not getting Brainstorm locked. We're good to go. So first and foremost, we don't want Batterskull. That's on top. Next, here what I want to do is get rid of Jace. It is a blue card, but in this moment, Spell Pierce is going to be pretty good because they're low on mana. I'm not planning on playing this anytime soon, but at least if I throw Jace back, which I do, now I can play Flooded Strand. I can crack that. Now I have the opportunity of either playing Spell Pierce or I can Force of Will, pitching Spell Pierce. So with Jace, that doesn't give me the opportunity, although keep in mind that once I Swords, I will be open to Spell Pierce Daze combo, but that's just something to think about. So here we are going to Swords. Who would you Swords? Okay, so at this point, you have to wonder how long it's going to take for this dude to flip. You know, plus they haven't really had many cantrips. That can get out of control, but I feel that's much easier. You know, at least if I put a Stoneforge in, if I put a Stoneforge in, a Snapcaster in, I can at least block and trade. So I actually chose to get rid of the Delver here, and there was nothing in response. So that's fine. So, despite the fact that there were some setbacks, some awkward brainstorms we needed to fire off, it's the same strategy as always. Develop your mana, play around their soft permission, and, you know, remove their creatures as you must or need to. Still nothing going on? Awesome. Okay, let's play that. Alright, I'm not worried about Snapcaster Swords here. I mean, that would be 1, 2, 3. Spell Pierce. That doesn't do much against Spell Pierce. They can Spell Pierce that. This isn't, you know, doing a ton to me right now, despite the fact that I'm at 9. It looks like Stoneforge is going to be the best play. Let's get Batterskull. Okay, so let's let that resolve. They can finally... So we were correct in the fact that they did have a Force of Will, and they pitched the Force of Will, so those were 2 of the cards that they had when they had 3 cards. The other one was probably a land. Here we want to pitch Spell Pierce. Now this is getting no use, which is fine. It's still a blue card that we want to pitch to it. And then we have Snapcaster Mage to go get Swords. Swords, anything we want. And have fun with that. Sure. And that was a very early concession, I must say. I mean, just think about it. You can go wide with the board. You can chump block. There's, you know, Ponders, Brainstorms. True-Name is going to brick wall this. Delver can fly, so even if they are taking 4, you know, they can fly and take 3 back. If I was playing Delver, I would never concede that early. But who cares? You know, it's my opponent. If they want to concede early, that's fine. Either way, let's move on to game number 2, and we'll talk a little bit about this sideboarding. All right, so... This at first I actually thought was blue-red Delver. I think we did see a Tropical Island, but I never made the connection. I'm like, oh, they're playing Rug. But, right, red, blue, green. And so I actually sideboarded completely different the second game once I realized they had red and 6, which you're going to see very soon. So keeping that in mind, the cards I'm going to bring in, this is a possibility if you want to like get hit Ancient Grudge. Although, I mean... It's not my favorite. I'd rather just keep in Force of Will, and then I can hit anything like True-Name. So if you want to bring that in, it's fine. I brought this in thinking it was Blue-Red Delver, and I need to stop. This is not good against Rug Delver or Blue-Red Delver. It just dies too easily. It can trade with a, what's the word? Delver, and it can, you know, flash in to attack red and 6, but they can also ping it very easily, so I don't like that. Here... So game 2, I didn't bring this in. I didn't realize they had run in 6, but now that I know, that's why I'm doing this here. I don't bring Blast in against Delver. In fact, I don't need them, to be honest. I don't know why a lot of people are crazy about them, but I have enough tools to deal with the threats that they have. Hydroblast, Flusterstorm, and Path To Exile. So those are the 5. So I'm bringing these in. Whoop. There goes that. I am not using my Volks. I'm taking out Jace against Delver. I feel like it's just too much mana. Let's sort this by filter or converted mana cost. That looks good. That looks good. So here, back to basics. So it really depends on what you want to do. Narset's not the worst. I know it's, it can get pinged easily, but if you play Narset, you get a card off of it and they bolt it. That's a really good exchange. If you play Narset, you get a card off of it and they attack it to kill it. That's not a bad exchange. Like, that's soaking up damage that otherwise could have gone to you. If it sticks around, you get 2 cards out of it, and then they need to kill it. It's a really good exchange. Or if it just sits there and cantrips sit in their hand, that's another really good exchange. So it's not as bad as a lot of people think in terms of this deck. I know you don't want to play it turn 3, like you're playing into Daze and Pierce and all that stuff, but a lot of times it's actually served me pretty well. So I do like keeping it in here. And when it comes to this, probably just going to take out back to basics. Especially with Daze, they can play around it very easily. I'm just not a fan of it in this matchup. However, you probably could do like a split of 1 back to basics and 1 Narset. I think the last game I might have kept in 1, but aside from that, in this build right here, these are going to be kind of the choices I would recommend. Like, everything else is pretty simple and straightforward. Hydroblast hits a lot of their targets. Spell Snare hits a lot of their targets. Rest in Peace I like. You could trim a Snapcaster if you're worried about losing value, but you probably wouldn't need to do that, seeing there's only 1. You'll probably see your Snapcasters, before you even get your Rest in Peace. But aside from that, that's pretty much how it's sideboard against Rug Delver. Now keep in mind, game 2, what you're about to see, I didn't know they had run in 6, so like I didn't bring in this, and there were a few changes, so don't be surprised if you see like a couple cards in here that are actually in game 2, but just keep that in mind. That's how it's sideboard against them. So let's go to game number 2. Alright, so once again, we have a very interesting hand. We're going to be on the play, where we have 1 land and we have a Ponder, but yet again, we have Swords. This is what I was talking about, Vendilion Clique. This is the card I didn't want, like I was talking about. I got to stop bringing that in. That's one you can just kind of scratch off. It just doesn't have enough value, is the reason for it, in my opinion. But I ended up keeping this. Once again, it's a little awkward, but you know what? Ponder can really help smooth out your hand. I am on the draw, so wouldn't be the worst to mulligan. However, I did end up keeping this, and we can always just play things out how we play things out. Once again, they have a turn 1 Delver. There is the option of Force of Willing that, however, you lose really bad to Daze. I mean, actually, probably wouldn't be the worst in the world, seeing, I could get rid of this. That means next turn I have a free Ponder, but that's probably something to consider in the future. Okay, let's Island, Ponder. Sure. Alrighty. I can't say I like it, but this, once again, will allow us to get a Tundra, even though playing in the Wasteland. So here, probably Pierce in the bottom. Island, Delta, Delta Island. Doesn't matter. I'm going to be drawing it next turn. Okay, and it flipped with a Daze. Yikes. On the play, with a flip Delver, and they have Daze, which is going to make our life much tougher. So like, I pretty much can't Force of Will anything here, which is fine. And that's always a good thing. Like, they, instead of playing a Dreadhorde, they Ponder. So here, let's see, it's not playing around Spell Pierce, but you know what? This thing is going to start doing some damage. If they play Spell Pierce, I can always Force of Will, pitching like Clique, and then I can still have Daze mana. So here we're going to Kamikaze, or we might have to Kamikaze, playing in the Wasteland, but sometimes you got to do it. It's fine. Let's Force of Will, I believe, pitching. Did I pitch Clique or Narset? Wow, okay. That's what I did. Sure. Ironically enough, if I was looking back at it, I guess this was the point where I was like, yeah, Clique's not that bad in this matchup. It's like, now I just want no part of it. So that was the reasoning behind that. I definitely would have done the Clique. Sure. What do they got? Okay, so this is where I realized, I'm like, oh, it's Rug Delver. Okay, so we'll dismiss that. We know they have that. Here, I thought about brainstorming into Daze, because that could take them back a turn, but at this point, it's not going to matter all that much. They're getting their land. You know, next turn, they're still going to have 3 mana. They can still play a True-Name, so I didn't want to do that. Day late and $1 short, as they say. Let's play Stoneforge here. Let's get Batterskull here. Sure. Land here would be the worst. Okay, well, we haven't seen 1 Plains, I think, so far. Just ironically enough, the way it's worked. There's been no Flooded Strands, I think. Did we see one last game? Yeah, I think we did eventually. It just took a long time. It's very similar to this game. So now we have Stoneforge and Spell Snare backup, which is nice. Because pretty much the majority of things that kill this cost 2, which is why, once again, even if like there were a lot of cards that this didn't hit in the current meta, it's still a great sideboard card. Because like I said, a lot of cards that cost 2 do some damage to Stoneblade. Like the Liliana's Edict that I always get wrong. Liliana's Triumph. Diabolic Edict, so on and so forth. So, sure. Sure. Now they're tapping. Alright, ironically enough, out of all the kill target artifacts, this is one I didn't want to see. So my options here were, I mean, I can pierce this and then just make them, you know, flash it back, which I'm pretty sure they can cast with, let's see. I'm pretty sure they can cast that at instant speed too. I've never actually played that card, but the only card that I usually see flashbacked is Cabal Therapy, which is a sorcery. So in my opinion, I just decided to actually let it go because snaring this means they're only going to have to pay a land, you know, pay a green, do it again. So that's the reasoning why I didn't snare it there. Sure. Let's attack this thing. For once, I'm actually attacking it. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've avoided this damn card. Just happened to get to it a little too late. Here I'm looking for a Plains. I did find one, so I don't want this. This is going to be on top, and this is going to be on top as well, because, let's see, I could play it. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Did I play land? No. And I think the best course of action here would be Jitte and Councils on top. I did Jitte and Clique. I probably would have been better off just keeping Clique and playing that on the end step here, at least so it's another target that they would have to kill. So now I have it. So pretty much, if they counter this, then, you know, there's 2 things they have to deal with. So that was one mistake. Like I said, Brainstorms and Ponders, that was a much better line. That means I play that at the end of the turn. They have to do something to it, even if it's like 3, 4, 5 Hardcast Force. At least it can start pressuring it. So that means if it attacked it, it would attack it to 3. Then they'd have to ping it. And then I would also have Council's Judgment up the turn after that. Plus, if they did Hardcast something, I do have a Spell Pierce. So that one little section right there might have made the biggest difference. All right, they're just getting rid of my Force of Wills, and it's taking a while. That might look like a really bad play, but that's something I actually do a lot. Not actually surgically extracting a Force of Will, but using it to counter a Flusterstorm. Excuse me, to power up a Flusterstorm. Because of that, let's see, even if they didn't do that, yeah, I could have paid for it. So that's the reason for that. No. Sure. Sure. Tread Horde. As expected. They can use the Rebound, Retrace, whatever it's called. You got it. So I feel like, yeah, I just didn't decide to play that out. This game, I sideboarded a little interestingly. Like, there's a lot of cards, like I said, like Clique that I didn't want. Like, I didn't have Rest in Peace in. Once I realized what they're up to, it gets a little different. Now they're just kind of going for swords. Ironically enough, they did this in Game 3. Oops, spoiler, they won this one. But you see Dark Depths doing that a lot. I don't know how much I like that out of Rug. I mean, I have plenty more ways to kill their threats, you know, especially on the stack, like with Spell Snare. Path To Exile, Council's Judgment, but I mean, guess that was their choice of play. I also didn't really like how the opponent played this towards the end. My opinion, they were going a little bit too slow, and despite the fact they have this and this massive graveyard of cards they can just keep, you know, casting again. Went for that again. Sure. Once again, they're powering up their Flusterstorm. Sure. Let's pay for it so then they can daze it. Spell pierce it, whatever it's going to be. Okay. Pretty basic stuff here. I guess that's the thing with a lot of these Delver decks, is that they just hit air a ton, you know, is my guess. I've played against so many decks where sometimes they only draw like one threat, and you don't even need the 3 Swords to Plowshares you have. Here I'm going for Council's Judgment. Despite the fact I have all this, it doesn't matter how the game is going. See, once again, I am always going to play to my cards and my outs, and make the opponent make bad plays, do stupid things, try and slow roll it. Slow rolling someone is probably one of the dumbest things you can ever do, because there's times where the person is going to come back and you look like an absolute idiot, especially when you lose a game you know you should have won. And this person, I guess they're just not finding anything, or they don't feel like bolting me, whatever the scenario is going to be. But yeah, I don't think they were slow rolling anything. They wouldn't like use bolt there. It's just not going to do enough. Probably save that for some type of Stoneforge. Okay, so let's attack first. We are still playing everything out. Just because they have this doesn't mean we're like a million miles behind, as you'll see. So here we want to play Ponder first. If we don't like what we see, we can always just shuffle it. Okay, so here they are actually Force of Willing that. And ironically enough, I wanted to respond because they were completely tapped out, so I decided to Brainstorm in response. Okay, and these are actually really good cards. So here, what I can do is actually let that resolve, and then I can play. I think if I had to do this again, what I would do is put back. Well, it's tough to say because I wanted True-Name Nemesis and I wanted Spell Pierce, because it wouldn't even matter if I had both of those because I need 3 islands. So what I actually decided to do here was just do like Stoneforge, True-Name, counter that. Not having enough islands here kind of sucked. And then once again, I think it's just going to be Strand on the bottom, and then Stoneforge and True-Name. Although, probably would have been better if I put True-Name in my hand, because that way, in case they want to surgical this for some odd reason, I don't lose it, and then, you know, True-Name gets shuffled away. I also didn't want to play Stoneforge. I feel that was a really good time to be able to play True-Name. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough lands for that based upon the plays that I make, but, you know, shit happens. Sure. But yeah, those 2 spots where I could have done something different. That's why I always love analyzing games, even though this person's not doing a whole lot. I feel like they could be doing so much more. They're probably just waiting to react to the cards that I play. Here I wanted to attack first, as always. Because despite the fact they have all this going on, this is still, I feel it's an extremely close game for, you know, what it should be. Let's play this. I know they have Ancient Grudge, but I'm still going to get Jitte. I don't see any reason to play this. They can just kill it immediately, but it can help with Brainstorm. Maybe I can lure them to kill something. Okay, there's a Brainstorm. It's a Bolt. Sure. Sure, Brainstorm. Now they have a True-Name. I'm going to have a True-Name. Let's play True-Name here. Yep, so that's going to be retraced. Then they're going to do 3 here and make sure they can actually do it. There's 3 and 6 more, 6, and that's the ball game. All right, cool. So that was game number 2. Despite the fact they had all this and this stuff going on, it was an extremely close game, but usually this is one of those decks, once you realize what they're up to. I completely didn't realize I I thought they were just strictly blue-red Delver, which I like better because they're probably not going to be playing Ancient Grudge because they don't use green if it's blue-red. Either way, I talked about the sideboarding and how it's slightly different, so I don't need to do that even though the cards are going to be different. So let's go to the third and final game of this matchup. It's funny, like a lot of times you'd look back at the game and be like, oh, running 6 is so good. But ironically enough, despite the fact I was behind a little for I'd say for the most part of that game, those 2 spots where I talked about those brainstorms would have made a huge difference because getting True-Name in quicker would have stopped that guy from attacking. There was a time where they was tapped out, so they would literally had to have a Force of Will to counter something, and they don't always have it. Sometimes you just got to make them have it. Maybe they take it out. Either way, let's move on to the final and third game. So... ironically enough, this is the third time in a row. All right, this time I have a Ponder. This time I have Swords to Plowshares again, but I don't have any actual just plain white mana. I don't have Arid Mesa, I don't have Flooded Strand, I don't have Plains. But either way, these hands have been interesting enough, and I feel like I've molded my way through it. I decided to keep this. I am on the play. I do know opponent mulliganed once, so we're going to be about evenish with cards. Let's play Island, let's Ponder, and let's win the game and the match. Okay, this isn't bad. So finally... I can get a Plains and develop my mana. I mean, this is all I was asking for, okay? So here what I want to do, it wouldn't hurt to have a Force of Will. I'm usually not going to Force of Will a Delver first turn, but it wouldn't be bad to have. So what I decided to do here is Force of Will, Flooded Strand, Force of Will, give me my card. Then next turn I'm going to get Flooded Strand, crack it, plow. I will have Force and Snapcaster backup. And Ponder, wow, so this is the third game and they didn't have turn 1 Delver. That's always good to see. I remember they shuffled there, so in case you're keeping score at home. Now, we're in an interesting spot. They don't have any creatures. I could play Flooded Strand and play Into Days, and that would really set them back. As you saw, they shuffled, so they didn't like what they saw. They might not have a whole lot in their hand, but I still do not like playing Into Days. It's just not my style. I'd rather play my Flooded Strand. If they play a creature, I'll plow it. The next turn, I can safely play Stoneforge around Days and plus that Force of Will. So here I decided to play Flooded Strand and go. Now, if I was playing against a deck with Stifle, I like calling it, I call it Stifle. If they have Stifle, here I would actually cracked and got a Plains, but this deck has shown and proven that they don't have it, so I decided to keep it that way. You got it. Sounds good to me. So end of turn, we are plowing this. Only thing they can do is Force of Will, and yeah. Cool. Well, that would have been helpful. If we had that before, then I probably would have played it turn 2, but I ended up fetching, and, you know, that was elsewhere. So let's play an island here. But before we do that, you know, this is very interesting, to be honest. I love this card. I don't think if I was playing Delver, I'd use it on this. Like I said, a lot of Dark Depths are using this, you know, but that's a little different with one hit, you know, but this is just kind of card disadvantage. You know, they're getting rid of card in my graveyard, so what? It's not like I have one in my hand, so I am completely fine with that play. I guess, you know, plus if you keep in mind, they have, what's it called? No creatures out in play. So even them doing this now isn't really going to do anything unless they were expecting to play. If I was them, what I would do when I had a creature card and I was expecting to play one, then I would use Surgical Extraction. And then you have at least a chance to nab one in my hand. Like I could have had one in my hand. I didn't, which is nice. I could have always forced that if that was the case, if I wanted to. But I believe this was a very not great play, especially for the fact that, you know, I'm ahead. You know, I've got a sizable amount of cards in my hand. All right, they're just exiling these. But that's fine. If they want to do that, I can see that. Now we can play Stoneforge. Okay. Let's get Batterskull. Sure. Okay. So they might have a land. I do this a lot. I will have more lands in my hand, and I will just play Ponder because it makes it more valuable that when you Ponder, you know, if you see the top card you like the rest, you can actually play your, what's it called? You know, Flooded Strand, Polluted Delta, crack it, and get rid of the rest. However, they have shown weakness every single turn. They have not found lands or other Ponders shuffled, so I actually decided to Force of Will this. That's right. And they decided to Force of Will back, which is actually not that bad. You know, I have a really solid hand right here. They're going to need a good amount of cards to get past that. So I'm like, I am completely cool with that exchange. Once again, it's a very easy, pitch with Spell Pierce because I'm going to be playing around all that crap. But aside from that, looks like they found the land. And nothing else. Like I said, I have other ways of dealing with their creatures, and there's another one. So let's play this. There is the option to fetch here, play Tundra, play Mystic, and then of course, so if they kill one, the other one next turn I'll be able to swing in. However, that line does not work to a Daze. If you think about it, this is where Daze comes in as a really good card to ensuring that your opponent doesn't do what you want them to do, even though you're not countering the spell. So let's say I cracked this and got a Tundra, and I played Tundra, Island, and I played Stoneforge. If they Daze that means now I can't bring in Stoneforge next turn, or at the end of this turn. So I got to choose between, all right, do I want another Stoneforge in play, or do I not want to be able to bring in Batterskull? So despite the fact that I have 4 mana, playing Stoneforge right here would actually be playing into Daze, where it's either getting countered or I'm bringing in Batterskull, and my number one priority right here is to bring in Batterskull. If they somehow kill it, I'll bring in my other Stoneforge, I'll get Jitte, so keep that in mind if you ever want to make a play like that, especially against Daze. Against any other deck, no Wasteland, no Daze, no crap like that, can certainly be different, but there is also the option of not bringing it in here, waiting to get another land, and then, of course, if they go to kill it, I can always bring it back. So right now they don't have any green mana, so even if they have Ancient Grudge, they're not going to be able to flash it back yet. So that is another possible play. And they do have Ancient Grudge, which is fine. Nothing I can do there, so whatever. Ooh! Hello, Mr. Nemesis. Let's attack. Stoneforge is getting all the popularity, so you might as well get our 1 damage in, right? Now let's play True-Name. No Red Blast open. They probably don't have Force of Will. They pitched the Spell Pierce to a Force of Will, so I'm guessing they're a little low on that. Perfect time to play that because it's free from Red Blast. Once that's in play, I don't think they have any way of dealing with it, to be honest. But okay, still no mana. Brainstorm and Concession. Remember what I talked about in game 1? I'm like, this is the spot where I hate brainstorming, because if I get brainstorm locked, I'm going to be in a bad spot. That's exactly what happened to them. But kind of in line with game number 1, I still once again believe they conceded very early, despite the fact that would have been 4, 8. They would have had to wait 2 turns. They would have been at 10. Then they have to wait to draw something. You can always probably make something out of it, especially if you want to go wide. Either way, I'm just the type of person who never concedes until I actually lose, but that's just me. I'll take the concession because that allows us to win 2-1 against Rug Delver. Game 2 is actually the most interesting. It looked like I was getting killed. However, there were 2 moments with Brainstorm or Ponder, or maybe it was both Brainstorms, where I should have put a card on top of the other one. As I talked about, sometimes you just got to take a little bit more time when it comes to your Ponder and Brainstorms, me especially. And I'm not saying, just a ton of time. Enough to think about, if I put this on top, what could they have? Or if I put this on top, does it allow me to, soak up the board, take some damage, block some creatures, stop them from doing what they want to do? And those decisions can literally make or break it for you. But yeah, and it can also lose you the game if you don't find the cards you want, which can happen sometime. Either way, like I said, 2-1 against the Rug Delver. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you soon.